Hi, welcome to our live cast. I'm here with Betty Albee, and we are going to continue our discussion on metaphysical science. And right now, we are just so that people know, if you're new here or new watching our live cast, we are going over a booklet that's available through our website at the Institute of Metaphysical Science at scientificmetaphysics.org. And we're going through the personal concept booklet. So this was written by Mrs. Laird, who is the original founder of the Institute of Metaphysical Science. So you can continue your exploration of any of the materials that we have there by going to the website. So today we're going to be continuing our exploration, and we have some things, and then I've also got some questions that came in, so we're going to address those near the end. And anyways, if you guys want to like or heart anything, if you're on Facebook, if you want to enter comments in, please feel free to enter the comments in to the comments area, and we get them both from YouTube and from Facebook. All right. And without any further ado, welcome, Betty.
Hello.
All right. Let's continue the conversation, shall we?
All right. Well, I was looking at Mrs. Laird's booklet, and there are a couple of statements that might be interesting for us to consider. The first one is the divine awareness of mind action is your human experience. Let me say that again. The divine awareness or mind action is your human experience. There's something going on that has you occur. Whatever that is, looks like a human experience. So it is that divine action that sources everything you're doing. All the stuff that comes up for you and what you do about it and how it looks to you and who's involved with it and so on. It's all your own divine being. The only way you can discover yourself at the moment.
So whether I like it or not, right?
Yeah, it's like joy. Joy constitutes being. So you're happy whether you know it or not.
Right.
And whether you like it or not.
Right. So anything that would get in the way of my experience of in the infinite unfolding of things would just be the opinions and judgments and beliefs that I buy into or that I entertain around whatever it is that's going on. Is that an accurate statement, or would you say that differently?
Yeah, I'd probably say it differently.
Oh, how would you say it?
Well, you're talking about whether I'm expecting something from what I observe. And that's sort of a roundabout way of saying, well, what is the stuff you observe? Who put it there? How come it looks that way? So in a sense, I'm discussing my own stuff all the time because the world that I walks through me, not as it is. Not at all as it is.
Mm.
So my perception is my reception. What I see is what I have.
Right.
Seeing is being.
Right. Okay. All right. And that goes into this quote: human beings see, hear, feel, taste, touch, and express themselves within the parameters of their perception, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
And it's our highest, it's what we see and what we're experiencing in the circumstances of our life or whatever that is our highest sense of the reality present. Would you say that that's an accurate statement?
Yep, it is. We don't actually realize that we're always operating at the highest level we're capable of at that moment. And it shifts every moment because
Right.
it's your awareness. And as that expands, your behavior shifts, your perception shifts, and what you include in your life shifts.
Right.
So it's an ever evolving situation, all dependent upon who you're being from
Right.
moment to moment to moment.
So say more about who you're being, dependent upon who you're being. Talk a little bit more about that, about being and who you're being in any given moment.
Well, you know, it's even it's even true within the confines of being a human being. Um, if I'm being drab and uninteresting and despondent and unhappy and critical and judgmental and opinionated, I will attract in my experience stuff that fits those parameters.
Right.
When I can look and see that, well, it doesn't have to be so bad. There's a silver lining here somewhere. Let's look for that. And stop judging and evaluating and criticizing, but just look around. You know, I'm visiting here in Minneapolis at the moment, and it's just beautiful. The trees are green and the lawns are lovely and the flowers are wonderful. And I went up, what was it, upstate Wisconsin this past weekend, and it was we were on a lake. It was just gorgeous. The birds were singing. It was a beautiful treat. So I could have thought I'd rather be shopping with my friends. It's too bad that I'm stuck up here in the country. You know, that can be one point of view. But going with my generating, having myself there, I had a beautiful, beautiful weekend. It was absolutely perfect.
Right.
You know, I just can't tell you. It's up to you whether you suffer or not, whether you're happy or not, whether you're filled with joy, whether you're critical, whether you're opinionated. It, you know, it's what I'm talking about is a whole lot more than the power of positive thinking. But in a matter of speaking, there is that.
Yeah.
You know,
It reminds me, what you were saying reminds me of the story of, and I'm going to tell it in the way that I remember it, but you know this story. And there was this kid that was awfully positive and he was always joyful and all that. And his parents thought, oh, we're going to teach him that life sometimes doesn't always look so rosy. So on his birthday, they put a big pile of manure out there and he ran out and he was going through the pile of manure and they're looking at each other like, what on earth? And he turned around and he said, well, heck, with a pile of manure like this, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. Again, perception, right?
Yeah.
And so that speaks to that same thing. And so it's our judgments and opinions and beliefs about what we're seeing, about our circumstances that tend to hold those circumstances stuck.
Well, yeah, and there's a little bit more than that to consider. The human picture is the human picture is the human picture. There's always going to be famine. There's always going to be war. There's always going to be disease. There's always going to be movie stars being famous. There's always going to be a millionaire going to the moon and so on. You got everything from A to Z. The human picture includes it all. So if I live myself as the Betty that you see in the mirror when you get up in the morning, if you're me, whatever you see in the mirror, if you live yourself as that's all there is to me, you're missing the biggest part of you. You're only working with the obvious. And you know that somebody that sees you and says, oh, I know her. Well, heck, I can tell you in a very quick minute, they don't begin to know who I am. And it is the part of me that isn't observable. And there's a lot of me that is not observable at all. You have no idea what I have going on that I'm not talking about, that doesn't show up in the clothes I wear or where I'm sitting or the dinner I'm eating. There's just a lot more to me than that. So there's a lot more to every one of us. And who we are is reflected in our perception of ourselves and of our others. You know, Mrs. Laird taught we are the world we walk through. And we are. I walk through the world as I am because the world that I walk through is my world. So if it's full of this and that and something else, I just take a look at it and think, well, isn't that interesting? Wonder why that would show up. But I have an opening there to see what else is possible. And I know that the range is unlimited. Possibility is never confined to what I observe.
Right. Right. So and that gets to the whole thing, you know, that I've always had a sense of, which is there's more to me than this.
Yeah.
There's more to who I am than just two legs, you know, a head, two arms, you know, there's more. And so then we're getting at what is that more? What is that encompassing being that gives life to this? Right?
Well, Margaret sums it up by saying, we live and move and have being mentally and always have.
Right. Right.
So it is the thinking constituting each one of us.
And not like the brain thinking.
No, nope.
It's like consciousness.
It's like universal intelligence.
Yeah, like consciousness constituting this thing that looks like Kim or Betty or what have you.
Yeah.
So it's not my brain here. It's not about positive thinking or somehow if I get that right, that's just still playing in the picture.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be in the picture at all if mind were not functioning as your being.
Right.
So we have something that looks like that language.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is actually much, much bigger than the confined to the physical presence that you see in the mirror.
Yes.
And that's why Margaret says, we are the world we walk through.
Right.
You know,
it seems to me like when you're trued up to that, there's a lot of freedom.
Well, you know, fundamentally, we all know that we're healthy, wealthy, and wise. If that were not true, there would be no effort to find a vaccine for the pandemic.
Right.
There would be no interest in moving out of lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know fundamentally that we should be healthy, wealthy, and wise, and we move in that direction. And sometimes it's the negative that brings out the positive.
Right. And we're experiencing that in several ways today in our living.
Yeah, sure.
Something's getting in the way of your mic. I just want to say that if you're rubbing on anything on your computer or laptop, it's affecting the mic.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what that brings me to is this next one is the failure to experience joy is not because the absence of joy, but because of the presence of personal sense. And I would say, and I think you would say that the reason we think there's no joy is because we have a picture of what we think joy looks like, which is all my own personal sense of what I think joy should be. Is that?
Yeah, and your concept of joy blinds you to the possibility that joy is universal freedom.
Right. Right. No concept.
Yeah.
So if I am open and I know that things can appear, disappear, reappear, appear, disappear, reappear, just like that constantly, and I'm open to it, then that's where the space of miracles exists.
Yeah. Because you never know when you don't have a preconception blinding you. You have no idea what's going to show up. So whatever shows up, you say, okay, that's the hat God's wearing today. All right.
Yeah, I heard this. I was engaged with this one thinking about intention. It's not necessarily like goals, but intention, setting your intention about, direction or what you want to see come into the world or manifest or whatever, and then let it go. What you're doing, what happens in that is you open yourself up, right, to however it might look, which is sort of interesting, but you're listening differently when you have that opening. You can see things that maybe you wouldn't see if you were wrapped up in all of the stuff in your circumstances. What would you say about that?
I steer a little clear of goal setting, outlining.
Okay.
Because mostly it is couched in the concept of what I want to achieve.
Yes.
And then I get myself on my mind as somebody that's got to be busy doing stuff.
Right.
And then if I do this, it'll be better. And if I do that, it'll be awful, and so on. And the whole secret of being free is no concept at all.
Right. Right. Now, the thing, this goes right into a question that we got. So I'm going to jump to the question, then we'll continue the conversation as I think it fits here. But let's see. Okay, with the pandemic, police and street violence, and such divisive political views, now it seems that joy is in short supply. So we've talked a lot about joy, and we touched on it last week also. But it says it's a natural, irrepressible facet of life living. Can you say a bit more? Can you say, when the whole question says that joy seems in short supply, what's that referring to? I understand that the dog's barking.
Yeah, excuse me a minute. I'll just open the door and let the dog out.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
You were asking?
Yep. So with the pandemic, police and street violence, and such divisive political views now that are being expressed, joy seems in short supply. But last week we talked about it as being an irrepressible facet of life living. So can you say a bit more?
Well, as I said in the beginning of our talk here tonight, the human picture, the human view, the human condition, if I can call it that, has everything from A to Z, and it's always present. There may not be a lockdown on my house anymore one of these days, but there is somewhere in the world somebody not having enough to eat, maybe, somebody having a rare success, maybe, somebody running for office and concerned about getting out the vote, somebody who doesn't like somebody and is going to make them miserable if they can get even. All that kind of stuff is going on all the time. It's called the human condition. It's like a puppet show or something. So it's always there. Now, how am I going to live myself when that stuff shows up? Well, as a scientific metaphysician, I take a look and say, aha, that's the way it looks. Now, what's actually present? So what's actually present is a reality that has me be, that has all of the brilliance, all of the talent, all of the genius of the universe available. Who am I being? Am I being a little old lady trying to figure out something? Or am I being conscious identity, allowing the world to show up as my oyster, so to speak, as my laboratory for discovering genius, for discovering possibility,
Right.
for discovering who I am beyond the thing I see in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes right with Mrs. Eddy's statement, all is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation.
Yeah, and this infinite mind has nothing to do with anything I observe. It's not encased in my head or anybody else's head. It's not something I can put on the desk and take a look at. It's not visible at all.
Yeah.
And yet everything I see, feel, hear, taste, touch has intelligence fundamentally as a constituent of its existence.
Mm-hmm.
So my concern, my interest, my joy is really all wrapped up in what's going on? What's going on? And then I look at this statement that you've put up on the screen and I think, what's going on is God being. It's all is infinite mind, an intelligence functioning, and this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I shouldn't be surprised when something comes up that answers my need at the moment, and it always will come up. By the way,
Right.
you know, I was listening to the news the other day, and what we heard was a discussion of all the possibilities for vaccines for the pandemic, and then somebody said, "Well, the problem we have is that we don't have any of the ingredients that we need. We don't have the fundamental ingredients that we need." And we looked around and thought, well, yeah, they're not in this country. And then we look at who we've been being as a country, and we think, I wonder if they will let us have some. Well, I don't know. I haven't been very nice to them, have I? So then there comes a moment when I take stock and say, hey, wait a minute. I'm treating that as if it's something out there, separate from me, and not workable at all. But if all, and I mean all with nothing left out, is mind functioning infinitely, then there can't be a need that divine love doesn't supply.
Right.
I cannot find myself wanting or lacking or miserable or sick or in any other way limited if I'm willing, and the willing is the big if, because we don't realize whether we're willing or not. But if I'm willing to have all be divine love present, really willing, I'll have no need that isn't met.
Right. Right. So there's a couple more. So last week, so this is another question. I think it fits really well right here. Last week you said that reality is the origin of every human concept.
Yeah.
And that we have to be willing to stand on the brink of the unknown to get past the concepts that blind us to reality, capital R. And that's the only way we can quit reliving the past. Now, here's the question. Racism seems to be such a tenacious concept. What's required for me to drop that?
Well, racism is hinged on that there are lots of things, people, places, and things out there separate from my being. But if all is infinite mind, where's the line of demarcation?
Mm-hmm.
So when I live myself as universal intelligence manifest, then I have to be willing to have whatever shows up be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And not only just fine, but actually a gift of the gods, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Perfection present. It doesn't ever hinge on my human, I like this and I want that, and I don't like that and I won't have this.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hinge on that. Those are all concepts that I may be stuck with if I believe that I'm the two-legged Betty I see in the mirror and I better shape up and take care of that thing in order to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I live myself divinely, I allow all that stuff to just be a language view of what's possible, recognizing that there is so much that I have no concept of, and be open to, wow, what do you suppose joy really does look like? What do you suppose abundance looks like? You know, I could have an abundance of mosquitoes in some places, but is that it? Or is there some other abundance that I can talk about?
Right. Same could be said of freedom.
Yeah, the abundance of freedom, an abundance of joy, an abundance of well-being. On we go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all present all the time, because the fundamental constituent, if I can call it that, the constitutional presence of perfection underlies everything that exists or seems to exist.
Yeah.
So perfection is the beginning point. And coming from perfection, I should have perfection everywhere.
Well, there it is. You could say it is. And the fact that you may or may not see it is limited only by the blinders you put on yourself.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to this last question, that was asked, which is, since beliefs and theories have no shelf life unless resisted, and since our language picture either changes or repeats second by second, how do we let go of the blinders that seem to keep us stuck?
Yeah, number one, I want to challenge that word about shelf life. You know, language has no shelf life, period. The continuity of an experience, a human experience, is really, it's gone and it comes back, and it's gone and it comes back, and it's gone and it comes back, and it's faster than you can snap your fingers.
Yeah.
So I really don't have a continuity of inharmonious existence. What I have is a persistence on my part to hang on to that belief that I've got that has me stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You see, because I keep having it. I resist it, so it stays, it comes back. What I resist keeps occurring, until I give up on it. Say,
Right.
well, I don't know. Maybe it should look like that forever.
Right.
Things shift.
Right. It reminds me of the statement, you either have 25 years of experience or you have 25 years of the same experience, or you have the same experience for 25 years. That's it. So you either have 25 years of experience, you have the same experience for 25 years.
That's great. Yep.
So how do you let go of it? How do you let go of the blinders that seem to keep us stuck? What's that piece? And then I think we can end on that too. But what is it? How do we let go of the blinders? Because then that'll give everyone something to take on and practice between now and next live stream.
Okay. You leave them alone. You make no effort to do anything about blinders. It's like having joy is an experience of exuberance, of freedom, of what? It's not like I'm going to go out and slay the dragon called unhappiness. I leave that alone.
Yeah.
I just am open to joy and smiling and whatever that takes, whatever. And I find out that the smallest thing, I was really having fun with my friend this weekend. We were walking along and we found weeds along the roadside that were in full bloom. We picked them and we had a weed bouquet on the dining room table that evening because they were really lovely. We just really enjoyed them. Right. And I think it's around us all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, that's Siri.
Siri.
She thinks you're talking to her.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, okay. So then we've had.
This is as loud as I get.
Okay. Now we've got Siri activated somewhere. So anyways, we're going to end this. There's one comment that we had that came in from Sarah Busey. That reminds me of the saying, I don't know who said it.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me at all?
No. Oh, now I can.
Okay. So it said, the Sarah Busey, the quote we have is, that reminds me of the saying, and she's not sure who said it. I don't know what it is, but I know that it is.
Yes. And that is exactly what I'm saying about joy or abundance or even a new job. I let go of all the concepts I've got of what it should look like, how it should feel, where it should be found, that kind of thing. And I just allow it to be.
Yeah,
And it shows up in a language that I can understand.
exactly. All right. Well,
And Sarah, that was a good quote, and it's right on.
right. So I want to just say thank you very much. We'll be back here again next week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And you can continue the exploration at our website, scientificmetaphysics.org. We're a nonprofit charitable organization. And you can see all of the different materials we have available, all the things that can continue the exploration for you. I want to thank you very much for your participation and hope to see you again out here next week. Until then, practice letting go.
Be yourself.